My name is Captain Adwoa Poku. I am 33 years old. I have been a signals intelligence officer for 9 years. And on a Thursday evening in April, I was pulled from an operation 40 minutes before deployment, with no explanation beyond a 4-word order that came from 3 levels above my commanding officer. Stand down, you are replaced. The replacement was a lieutenant named Rosa. I did not know her well. She had been posted to the base 6 weeks earlier. She was capable. I had no reason to question her selection, except the obvious one. Nobody pulls a lead officer from an operation 40 minutes before deployment unless something has changed: a medical emergency, a security breach, an asset compromised. None of those things had been communicated to me. I stood down. I watched Rosa deploy with my unit. I went back to my quarters, and I waited. Rosa did not return on schedule. Let me tell you about the operation first. A signals intelligence collection mission, a location I will not name. The mission had been in planning for 11 weeks. My involvement had been the foundation of that planning: my regional language capability, my existing relationships with the informant network in the area, my knowledge of the communication patterns we were targeting. I had built the operational profile. I had mapped the collection points. I had established the contact protocols. I had documented the informant relationships. The operation had been designed around what I knew and who I knew. 40 minutes before deployment, I was told to stand down. Rosa went in my place. The mission was a 5-day operation. On day 4, contact with the unit went dark. On day 5, a recovery team was sent. Rosa was found alone at the extraction point. The rest of the unit had completed the collection mission and returned through a secondary route. Rosa had become separated during a communications failure on day 3. She had survived. She was recovered. She was debriefed. She is not part of this story in the way you might expect. What happened to her was serious, and she handled it with composure. But what she experienced in those 4 days is hers to tell, not mine. What is mine is what the debrief revealed.
The debrief. I was not in the room for Rosa's debrief. I was not in the room for the unit's debrief. I was in a different room. 3 days after the unit returned. Alone with a major named Kwame Obeng, from the Intelligence Oversight Division, and a recorder and 4 hours. Obeng was not there to debrief me on an operation I had not participated in. He was there because the operation's post-incident review had identified something that required my account. He opened by asking about the operational profile I had built for the mission. I told him I had built it over 11 weeks and knew it well. He said he knew that. Then he asked me to understand something before we continued. He said, "The profile you built was not used for the mission it was planned for." I sat with that. He said, "The collection points you mapped, the contact protocols you established, the informant network maps you documented, they were used, but not for signals collection, and not by your unit." I said, "What were they used for?" He said, "That is what I am going to tell you." The object at the center of everything was my operational profile. 11 weeks of work. A document that contained my regional knowledge, my language capability assessments, my contact protocols, my informant network maps, my communication pattern analysis, my name on every page, my clearance number on every page, my professional reputation embedded in every assessment and every relationship documented within it. That profile had been extracted from the mission planning system 3 weeks before deployment. Extracted by a credential I had not used. A secondary access that should not have existed. It had been used to support a parallel operation running in the same region at the same time. An operation I had not known about. An operation my unit had not known about. An operation that was not in any planning document I had ever seen. Obeng told me this in the careful sequence of someone who has rehearsed the order of information, because the order matters. He did not rush. He watched my face as he spoke, and he let me process each piece before he moved to the next. I listened. I did not speak until he finished.
I want to pause here, because sitting in a room understanding that 11 weeks of my work had been extracted and used to run an operation I had never been told about, an operation that my name and my relationships and my professional credibility had been used to support without my knowledge, is the moment this story became something I had not prepared for. If you have ever discovered that your name had been used for something you did not authorize, drop a comment below. And subscribe right now, because what the parallel operation actually was and who had authorized the extraction of my profile is the part that changes everything. The parallel operation. Obeng told me the shape of it, not the detail. Some of what follows is still classified at a level I cannot discuss fully, but the shape. A private intelligence contractor had been operating in the region under an arrangement that was not fully authorized through standard channels. The contractor had a legitimate historical relationship with elements of the institution. The arrangement had been permitted to persist through a series of administrative oversights and deliberate obscurations by an officer who had interests in the contractor's continued operation. That officer was Brigadier General Simon Atta. Atta had been the officer who had issued the 4-word order that pulled me from deployment 40 minutes before I was due to leave. Stand down, you are replaced. He had pulled me because the parallel operation was not running alongside my mission. It was running inside it. The contractor had embedded within the same informant network I had mapped. They were using the same contact points, the same contact protocols, the same sources. If I had deployed, I would have visited those locations. I would have met those sources. I would have found my own protocols in use by people I had not authorized and in contexts I had not designed them for. Pulling me eliminated that risk entirely. Inserting Rosa Nyarko ensured it further. Rosa was new to the base, new to the region, new to my informant network. She could not have recognized what I would have recognized. She would follow the mission plan I had built and see nothing that contradicted it, because she had no prior knowledge to contradict it against. My profile gave the contractor the access and credibility they needed. Rosa's insertion ensured nobody who could identify the misuse was on the ground. Atta had managed both in a single order. Stand down, you are replaced. 4 words, 40 minutes before deployment. 4 words that did 2 jobs at once. Obeng asked me one question after he finished laying out the shape of it. He said, "In the 11 weeks you were building that profile, did anything feel wrong?" I thought about it carefully before I answered. There had been one thing. 6 weeks into the planning, I had submitted a contact protocol for a source I had worked with for 3 years, someone whose trust had been built slowly and carefully over that time. The protocol submission had been acknowledged, and then 2 days later, I had received a request to expand the documentation, to include more detail about the contact's location patterns, the nature of their other relationships, information that went beyond what a signals collection mission typically required. I had expanded the documentation because the request had come through standard channels with a valid authorization code. I had thought at the time that it was thorough planning. I understood now what it had been. I said, yes, there was one thing. I told him about the protocol expansion request. He made a note. Then he told me the request had originated from a credential connected to Atta's administrative access. His team had found it in the authorization logs 3 days earlier. He said, "Captain Poku, I want to be clear about something. Nothing that happened here was your error. The profile you built was professionally constructed and correctly submitted. What was done with it was done without your knowledge and without your consent. Your name was used, your relationships were used, your work was used. None of that is on you." He said it in the tone of someone who means it precisely and wants it understood precisely. I heard it. The informant, the source I had worked with for 3 years, the one whose contact protocol had been expanded, was compromised as a result of the contractor's use of the profile. I have thought about that more than I have thought about anything else in this story. 3 years, a relationship built slowly and carefully, trust established through consistency and discretion, and the understanding that their safety was something I took seriously as a professional obligation. The contractor had used what I documented about them, had used the location patterns I recorded, the relationship details I had mapped, all of it extracted from my profile and deployed in a context that put them at risk. I had not known. That is the hardest part to carry, not the misuse of my work or my name or my professional credibility. The person. That person is safe. The details of how their safety was secured are not mine to share, but I was told. I needed to be told. When Obang gave me that information, his voice had a particular quality, not softness, precision, the deliberate choice to say the words clearly so they would land clearly. I heard them. I still carry the rest.
The investigation ran for 6 months. Brigadier General Simon Atta was found to have facilitated the extraction of classified operational profiles on 3 separate occasions over a period of 2 years. My profile was the most recent. In each case, the profiles had been used to support the private contractor's regional operations. The contractor had been operating with Atta's protection for 4 years. The relationship had been financially motivated. The investigation found payments to accounts connected to Atta totaling a significant sum over the 4-year period. Atta was arrested in month 3. He was charged with unauthorized disclosure of classified materials, corruption, and conduct prejudicial to good order and military discipline. He pleaded not guilty. The court-martial ran for 8 weeks. He was convicted on all charges. He is serving 11 years. The private contractor's operating license was revoked. Its principals face civil and criminal proceedings in 2 jurisdictions. Rosa. She had been inserted into a situation she had not been briefed on because her lack of regional knowledge was an asset to the people who pulled me from the operation. She had not known she was a cover. She had executed the mission she had been given with the information she had. She found me 3 weeks after the investigation concluded. She said, "I didn't know what I was walking into." I said, "I know, neither did I, and I wasn't even there." She told me the signals collection had been real, the unit had gotten what they went for. And then she said something I have returned to many times since. She said, my protocols had worked, my contact maps had been accurate, whatever had been done with my profile on the other side, the work I had built was sound. That was a generous thing to say. It was also true. I had built something sound. Someone had used it without my knowledge. The work was still sound.
The operational profile is in the evidence archive now. 11 weeks of work, my name on every page. Used without my knowledge for a purpose I had not designed it for, and then recovered, documented, made part of a record that ended with 11 years and a revoked license and the safety of a source I had spent 3 years building a relationship with. The profile did not disappear into what was done with it. It became part of what ended it. Here is what a 4-word order and a parallel operation taught me. When something feels wrong, note it. Not just the feeling, the detail, the request that went slightly beyond what the mission required, the authorization code that came through standard channels but asked for something non-standard, the expansion of a contact protocol that should have prompted a question I did not ask at the time. I asked it later, 6 weeks late, in a room with Obang and a recorder, but I asked it. And the note I gave Obang about that request was in the authorization logs, and the logs connected back to Atta, and Atta's 11 years includes that log entry as part of the foundation. Ask the question, even when you think you already know the answer, even when the answer seems to be thorough planning. Because sometimes the question is the thing that is needed, and you are the only one who knows to ask it. Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. She came back from nothing. She asked what her name had been used for. That question was enough.